This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
The Divrei Chaim of Sanz used to say over the following mashal. He said there was a mother of very hungry children. The mother comes home one day and she has, wrapped in a bag, surrounded by many layers of tissue, she takes out, to the delight of her children, an egg. And the children who haven't seen an egg for days, they haven't seen a morsel of food, more than a few scraps of bread and a little bit of water, jumping up and down in excitement. Wow, Mommy, we have an egg. This is so amazing. We're going to eat the egg. I can't wait. How are we going to scramble it? Are we going to roast it? Are we going to cook it? Are we going to bake it? Like, what are we going to do with it? They're so excited. She says, no. We're not going to eat this egg. We're going to wait till it hatches. Wow. Does that mean we're going to have like a chicken, and we're going to actually be able to have roast chicken maybe on Shabbos? We're going to eat it. This is unbelievable. The kids were exciting. Everyone was jumping up and down for joy. You can't imagine the simcha in the house was unbelievable. And then she said, no. We're not going to eat that chicken. We're going to make that chicken have eggs. And then more eggs with more chickens. And then with that money, we're going to go and buy a cow. And with that cow, we're going to sell the milk. And she got so excited that she forgot she was holding an egg and it smashed on the floor and it dropped. And she no longer had the egg anymore. The sons of Rebbe once said this moshel in the following manner. He said it's exactly the same thing with us. We come to an Elul, we come to a Rosh Hashanah, we come to a Yom Kippah. Maybe we heard some fiery shmuzin about Teshuvah, about Rosh Hashanah, about slichos. No, maybe we heard those things. Maybe it entered our hearts. Maybe it entered our brains. Maybe we registered. Maybe we didn't. And we got excited. And we started saying, you know what? We can do Teshuvah. And we can become better in Rosh Hashanah. And this year is going to be a great year. And we get so excited by it that by the end of Yom Kippur, by the time Sukkot comes, the whole thing's forgotten. It's all over. It's gone. It's finished. The egg just smashed on the floor with no remnants, with no left over there. And the question is, what can we do? What can we do this year? This is not the first year you've heard a Musa Shmuz about Teshuvah. Definitely not from me. This is not the first time you've heard this. What can you do this year that maybe something can be different? That maybe something can actually change, can actually remain with you after the Yomim Noraim. So let me tell you a couple of things, and I have a couple of ideas that maybe will be able to help us together. Teshuvah, Chazal tell us, is something very, very choshev. Teshuvah is not just like, a nice thing to do. If you want to do Teshuvah, you don't want to do Teshuvah, it's a mahala, it's a nice thing. Oh no. Teshuvah is an integral part of the world. It's an integral part of the creation of the world. There's a Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis. The Gemara tells us as follows. Teshuvah Kadma lebrias ha'olam. Says the Gemara, tell us Chazal, that before the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world, Teshuvah was already in existence. What does that tell us? That it's impossible to have a world without Teshuvah. Teshuvah is a halachic of the running of the world. Everybody, unfortunately, in some point of their life will come across an aveira and it has to be dealt with. Teshuvah has to be done. It's a halachic of the world. There's a lashon of the Zohar Kodesh. The Zohar Kodesh says, the world couldn't be in existence without Teshuvah. Teshuvah isn't just a nice thing. I'll tell you some of the lashonos of Chazal. There's a Gemara in Yuma Pei Vavam and Beis. The Gemara tells us, Gedolet Teshuvah shemevi refuah la'olam. It brings refuah, it brings remedies, it brings people becoming better from their illnesses. Or maybe geula la'olam. Reb Meir Omer, when a person does Teshuvah, it's a very serious thing. Teshuvah is unbelievable. Teshuvah has the opportunity to reach ad kisei hakavod. There's something choshev about Teshuvah. But it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper because there's something that we can actually apply it to. There's something that we can get out of this. It's all nice to hear, do Teshuvah, come on. Yom Kippur is coming, you've all done Averis, come on, do Teshuvah. No, I don't think that will work. I think we have to come up with a solution. I think we have to come up with an eitzah, with an idea that every single person here right now could leave this room tonight and have a few more days to think about. At these days of time, this is what we should be thinking about. This is what we should be trying to do something about it. So I want to give you a couple of ideas. There's an unbelievable Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchas Teshuvah, in the beginning of Perek Beis, tells us what is Teshuvah. What is this thing called Teshuvah? Tells us the Rambam as follows. It says the Rambam, it's made up of 3 components. There are 3 components of what Teshuvah is. Number 1, says the Rambam, is aziva sachet. We need to get this aveira and get it out of here. Stop, finished, end, no more aveira. Number 2, says the Rambam, is charota. You have to regret it. Number 3 is kabbalah lahaba. The acceptance upon yourself never to do that again. Now, I must want to add in parenthesis or brackets, as we say, what does it mean to regret? People have this problem, right? I meant to regret the aveira that I did. Oh, come on, Rabbi, I had a great time. It was great. What are you telling me? I have to regret it. What do you mean? I'll give you an example, right? Let's make a good example. You spoke a juicy piece of Lashon Hara. You knew something great about someone that nobody else knew, and the whole oilam is there, and you're speaking, and everyone's quiet. You're giving them the juicy information about this fella, and you're feeling so good about yourself, right? And afterwards, someone tells you, that was really not nice. This poor guy over here will never get a shidduch, or this poor guy will never get, he'll never get a parnasa because no one's going to use him for his work, or whatever it can be. So what are you meant to do? I'm meant to regret it? Rabbi Sai, I enjoyed every moment of it. It was great. I had a great time. It was such fun. I felt so good about myself. What does it mean I have to regret an aveira? And apply it to every aveira in the world. How do you regret an aveira? So I once heard a pshat, a beautiful pshat. I don't now remember where I heard it because it was a few years ago. But the pshat went like this. If you have a child that has a lollipop, right? Children sucking a lollipop. And the lollipop falls on the floor and goes into the dirt, goes into the dust. The child picks it up. It's full of dirt, it's full of dust. What does the child do? Puts it back in its mouth and eats it. Oh, that's disgusting. But it's so sweet. To this child, it's such a sweet lollipop. It's beautiful. But it's disgusting. That's what we mean. When the Rambam tells us that one of the halachic of Teshuvah is to regret that which you've done, we're not saying it wasn't sweet. Maybe you enjoyed saying over the Lashon Hara, of course you shouldn't have done, but maybe you did. But it's disgusting. It's not something that should be done. You're ki'ilu kaviyachol, if you can say such a thing. Slapping the burnished on his face, kaviyachol, if you can say that in the Beis Medrash. That's what you're doing with an aveira. It's a disgusting thing. When you think for a moment that you've done something against the will of your Creator, it's very serious. And maybe then you'll put it into perspective. But I want to go back. The Rambam told us there's a 3-step method of Teshuvah. Again, finishing the chait, no more aveira. Number 2, this charata, this regret. And number 3, this kabbalah ala haba. I want to tell you something that the Rambam himself adds afterwards. And it's very, very scary. The Rambam tells us, you know what real Teshuvah is? You know what real Teshuvah is? When a person regrets it to the madrega, to the level that the Ribono Shel Olam himself can give edus on us that we will never do this again. And I ask you, is this possible? Is this possible? Is it possible for us to get up there on Yom Kippur or Asosime Teshuvah during Slichos or whatever it is during the day and to say to the Ribono Shel Olam, I'm so sorry. I spoke that Lashon Hara. I ate that which I wasn't meant to. I saw that which I wasn't meant to. I said that which I wasn't meant to. I feel so terrible about it, and I will never do it again. And the Ribono Shel Olam at that moment can say, I'm giving edus on him. He'll never do it again. Is this possible for us? How do we do this? How's it shaykh in the Mitzvahs? And the Rambam is telling us this is Teshuvah. This is how we're meant to show up to Yom Kippur. You're meant to show up with a clean slate. This is Teshuvah. How do you do this? So I found, Baruch Hashem, a Mitzvah Gedoyla, and the Nesivos. The Nesivos writes as follows. Listen to what he says. It's a beautiful thought. It's something that we can really help us to understand what are we meant to be accomplishing during these days. Says the Nesivos as follows. The Gemara tells us, Chazal tell us, Aveira gereres Aveira. That when a person does one Aveira, it automatically causes another one. You do one, which spirals onto another. It's like a domino effect, one after the other, after the other, after the other. That's the Mitzvah, that's how it goes. Until all the way that Chazal tell us in the Gemara in Kedushin Daf Mem Amud Aleph, that a person eventually nasek a heter becomes so normal that it's like it's mutter. I've done it so many times, you've spoken to Lashon Hara again and again and again until it's like, it's pretty much okay. So it becomes to a situation where every Aveira causes another one. Says the Nesivos, you know what Teshuvah means? Teshuvah means to break away from that domino effect. To stop that flow. to stop that continuation of Aveira, Gereris, Aveira, and stand up like a man and say to the Rebbeinu Shloim, Ad Kan, that's it, it's over, finished. And if you go and do that Aveira again, that's not a continuation of the original Aveira. That's just not, it's not a spiral, it's not a domino effect from what happened. That's a brand new Maisa. And what the Rambam is telling us, explains the Nesivus, is that the Rebbeinu Shloim has to go give Eidos that we don't want to ever do this again. It could be will happen. Good, maybe we'll speak Lashon Hara again. But don't let that stop you. Don't let that thought of, no, well, I'm going to do it anyway, so like, what's the point of regretting it? And what's the point of saying I'll never do it again? When I know, straight after Yom Kippur, I'm going to do it again. Haraya, right? We said we clap on Salach Lanu Avinu about 10 seconds after Yom Kippur finishes. We're already doing Teshuvah. Like, because we're already thinking ahead of what's going on, right? You have to realize, you can't let this put you down. You have to do Teshuvah with the full das that this is it, I'm stopping the continuation. And if something happens in the future, so that wasn't a continuation of that. That's a new Maisen Ganzen. And therefore you were yoyt to this Rambam. And I want to continue. I want to give you a mahala, which I think is gavaldik. We've spoken about this in previous years, but this is something which I believe can really help us do tshuva. This can help us become a better person, and Mimela can help us have a wonderful year. The Rishonim tell us as follows. Say the Rishonim, that if a person has charata, if a person regrets his bad deeds, then he gets a din of a Bal Tshuva now, says the Oizaru and other Rishonim as well. And he writes, even the most chomer Averis, the Averis that require Misa, some of the Averis that require Korei Semirachem, if a person would be'emes regret it, and he's upset that he did something connected das of the Rebbeinu Shloim, he gets a din of a Bal Tshuva. What's the raya? How can he say such a thing? The answer is in Fush Gemara. The Gemara tells us in Kedushin Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis. Listen to this Gemara, it's unbelievable Gemara. A person goes up to a woman. He says, Harei at Mukadeshes. I'd like you to marry me. Harei at Mukadeshes. Al Manas, on condition, Sha'ani Tzadik. I want you to marry me on the condition that I am a Tzadik. Says the Gemara, Afilu Hayarosha Gamo. Even if this man is a complete and absolute Rasha, he's a terrible person, Mukadeshes, they're married. Why? Understand? He made a Kedushin on the condition that he's a tzaddik and he's a Rasha. How did it work? Wasn't chal. Says the Gemara, Shemahiru Tshuva B'daitai. Maybe at that moment when he was being Mekadesh this woman, he was thinking of doing Tshuva. And Rabbi Say, the Nesivus Shalom asks the obvious question. And the question is good. He was Mahara B'Tshuva. Wow! He's a Rasha! He's not a tzaddik. This man was a Mekadesh, a woman, Aldas, that he's a tzaddik. He's a Rasha. Who cares if he was Mahara B'Tshuva? Says in the Siva Shalom, what we see from over here is a tremendous thing. What we see from over here is that when a person has an emes dikacharata, when he's upset that which he did, according to his madrega, whatever that is, so then he gets a full cleansing. The kapara is there, the tshuva is there. This man is a clean man. He's a tzaddik right now. What are we trying to tell you? The Rishonim are trying to tell us that what you're looking at, a person is, you're not looking at what is he now, you're looking at where is he headed. And what's the biggest proof to this is what we daven on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur we all know that we do something very interesting. By Kol Nidre, the beginning of Yom Kippur, we walk into shul, for the married, we've got our kittel on, or you've got your suit on, your hat, whatever it is, and you walk in, you're stuffed, right? You've stuffed your stomach with every single type of food and drink that you possibly get in there for the next 25 hours, and you come into shul, your mom is stuffed over there, this is mamish like, wow. And the first thing you do in Kol Nidre, you daven Mariv. What do you do by Mariv? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusay La'olam Va'ed. Loud, like a malach. Only a malach can do that. We can't do that. Yom Kippur, we're a malach. And what happens at the end of Yom Kippur? After the end of Yom Kippur, entire 25 hours of standing in shul, doing tshuva, not eating, not doing all the things that we normally do, we're mamash a malach. And it comes to that mariv, and all of a sudden, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And everybody asks the obvious kasha. This is the most famous kasha in Yom Kippur. I don't understand. In the beginning, what happened? Who am I? I'm a regular guy. I've just eaten everything. I feel great. This is wonderful, right? Oh, no, so I got some slippers on. Nowadays you have Crocs anyway, so it's even more comfortable than the shoes, right? So like, what's the big deal? And yet, Baruch Shein Kavayim Achosay Lo'olam Va'ed. And at the end of Yom Kippur, when you've just spent 25 hours with the Rebbeinu Shalom, nothing else. Your phone is off, the computer is off, there's no work, there's nothing, no distractions. All of a sudden, you say it quietly. Says the Maharal, there's tons of answers over here. Now, we look on the person of where he's heading. At the beginning of Yom Kippur, where's he heading? He's heading on a day of Teshuvah. He's heading to a day of becoming a better person, of cleaning his slate. So we're looking at him in the direction that he's going. You are a malach. At the end of Yom Kippur, unfortunately, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about what type of food we're going to have, what type of cake, how many cups of orange juice, how many coffees. That's what we're busy with. That's what we're busy with. Of course, the real tzaddikim are busy with, okay, we'll be Isaac in the sukkah, obviously, because that's what we're meant to do after Yom Kippur, have a suda, okay, whatever it is. But you're not heading to where you were heading 25 hours ago. The Yesod Rabbi Sahib Teshuvah is, where are you heading? The Rebbeinu Shalom is not going to be looking at all of you on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and during the days between Asayis and Teshuvah and saying, all right, come on, let's see what you got. Because, I don't know about you, but I speak for myself, that's pretty difficult. Right? We're under a microscope, that's difficult. But what the Rebbeinu Shalom is looking at is which way are you heading? Where is your mahala? How are you going to become a perfect Jew? And that might take 400 years. But the question is, how are you going to get there? If you're doing something to get there, if you're doing something to try, then the Rebbeinu Shalom says, he's on his way. If you stand up, and this is my Ikka Nakuda, and you stand and you think for a few moments, in these days now, this is the Ikka days that we're meant to be thinking about these things, and you think to yourself, what can I do to become a better person? And you pick that one thing, and it's got to be small, and it's got to be doable, and it's got to be normal, and you pick that one thing and you do it, then the Rebbeinu Shalom may look at you and say, 1 second, he's not perfect, he still does this, and the list goes on wrong, but this man over here is on the right mahalach, he's on the right path, he's headed in the right direction. If he continues this way, this man will be a perfect man, maybe in 400 years, but he's on the right mahalach, he's on the right path. And that's what the Rebbeinu Shalom is looking for. The Rebbeinu Shalom is looking to see, not are you perfect now, but are you on the right road to getting to be perfect? That's what it is. The Chassam Sofer says such an unbelievable thing. Listen to this Chassam Sofer. He says, on Rosh Hashanah, in Shamayim, what's going on over there? Is they're judging us. The Malachim are coming over and they're saying, Yankala, this man is a Ben Torah. He's a Bal Chesed, he's a Choshev Yid, he davens, he loves learning, he helps other people, he does tzedakah. Wow, this Yankala, he's such a tzaddik. All of a sudden, you see these dark angels coming over, the Mekatrogim, they come over and they say, him, this guy, what, he was in the Beis Medrash? Immanuel Yisem, we were with him in a different place. He wasn't there. He wasn't in the Beis Medrash. His mind was elsewhere. He was thinking of other things. He wasn't even there anyway. And there's a whole fight going on in Shamayim. What's going on? In Shamayim, they're calling you a tzaddik. There are people over here coming on to say that you weren't even there. You never did that act. You never learned that word of Torah. You never did that myself, tzedakah, of chesed, whatever it is. What's going on? So the Chassam Sofer says, what's pshat? The Chassam Sofer answers as follows. The Chassam Sofer says, what's really going on in Shamayim is they're saying what this Yid really wants to be. In Shamayim, they're saying this man wants to be a Bal Torah. He wants to be a Bal Chesed. He wants to be someone that's together with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Good, he has Eitzahoras, he has other things, that distractions, this, that, and the other. But this is a man that wants to be there. He wants to get there. And if that's the case, in Shamayim, that's how they look at you. And I don't know about you, but that's what we want of ourselves. We want the Rebbeinu Shalom and Shamayim them to look at us as where we want to be. So the question is, Rabbi say, where do you want to be? What is your plans for your Yiddishkeit for the rest of your life? This is the chance to work on it. This is the chance to think about it. There was once a Gavaldiga Meiser, the Sar Shalom from Belz, said to his Gabba one morning of Slichas, he said, come, let's get into the horse and carriage. We're going to the outskirts of the city. The Gabba thought, a weird thing that the Rebbe, on the first day of Slichas, he's going to the outskirts of the city. I mean, the poor, the paupers live there, the regular people live there. Like, what's the Rebbe doing over there? But don't ask any questions on the Rebbe. So he gets into the horse and carriage, the Rebbe comes as well, and off they go to the outskirts of the city. And the Rebbe said, okay, stop here. And they get to a house of a simple tailor, regular normal tailor. He comes into the town to do his work, he goes back to where he lives in the outskirts of the city, wonderful. And the guy was thinking, what is going on? What does this Rebbe want? And the Rebbe goes, and he goes up to the window, and he peers between the shades, and he watches. And the guy was thinking, what is the Rebbe doing? I mean, this is a malach come out the Rebbe. Like, what is he doing in such a case, looking inside the window of a poor tailor? So the guy looks himself to see, what can he see? And he goes there, and he sees a very interesting sight. He sees the tailor sitting by the table with 2 glasses of wine in front of him. And he sees like he's talking to someone. And talking and talking and talking, and then all of a sudden he takes 1 glass, he drinks it, takes another glass, and he drinks it. And then that's it. And the Rebbe says, okay, we can go now. And he goes back in the horse and carriage. The Gabba's thinking, what in the world could the Rebbe have wanted from such a Maisa? So the next day the Gabba couldn't contain himself. He said, Rebbe, please, tell me. And the Rebbe didn't want to. So eventually he met the tailor. He said, Taylor, tell me, what on earth was going on? 2 cups of wine, who were you talking to? What was going on? She said, okay, I'll tell you the pshat. He said, listen, I have difficulties in life, Yiddishkeit, people stop coming to my business, and once I saw people weren't coming to my business, I decided, well, no point davening anymore, and slowly but surely, I fell by the wayside, and I became less and less religious, until I wasn't keeping very much. And then all of a sudden, a few days ago, I realized to myself, oy vay voy, Elul, Slichas, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, what am I going to do? That's it, I have to do Teshuvah. But what do I know about Teshuvah? What do I know about doing Teshuvah? So I figured to myself, I always see people when they have a fight or something like a disagreement, so how do they make up? They have a l'chaim. They go together, they sit there, they have wine, they have a l'chaim, they drink it, wonderful, everything's made up. So I figured to myself, you know what? I'll do the same thing with the burnished. So he sits down at the table, he pours 2 cups of wine, one for him and one for the burnished. And he says, burnished, I don't know how to do this Teshuvah business, right? What do I know? I was never taught anything, I don't know anything about these things. You know what? Let's drink a l'chaim, and we'll make up, and we'll be best of friends, and everything will be good until now. I'll take on all the tefillah and davening and everything else that I was doing until now. So he drank the cup, one for me and one for the burnished, and that's wonderful. So the Kav heard this, he said, all right, very nice Maisa, but okay, what the Rebbe going to do with this? So he went to the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, I must be honest with you, I asked the tailor, and he told me, what was the Rebbe's interest? He said, let me tell you, when that tailor was sitting at that table and talking to the Rabbeinu Shalom, the entire Shomayim, with all the malachim together, were gathering to watch this man do Teshuvah. And the Rebbe said, how can I not be a part of that? Rabbi Yisai, it's up to us. We have an opportunity to do Teshuvah. It's simple. You need to spend a few moments of thought, of thinking of what the Rambam said of charata, of what it means. Maybe you did enjoy it when you shouldn't have done. But it's disgusting. Of the charata that makes a person have a din of a tzaddik gomor, even though he could be a Rosh at this moment of time. One last thing, Rabbi Yisai. Reb Chatzkel, when they were in Shanghai in the May, it was after Yom Kippur, and Reb Chatzkel said a little bit of divrei chizuk to the olam, and he said as follows, he said, if a person builds a huge tower, and he stands on top of the tower, and he's all excited, and eventually he falls off the tower, and he crumbles down to the floor, and he starts to cry. And he says, my tower fell, my tower fell, my tower fell. They say to him, no, you fell. Your tower's still there, have a look. Said Reb Chatzkel, Rabbi said, listen to this. Said Reb Chatzkel, when it comes to the days of Elul, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, says Teshuvah, Slichos, Yom Kippur, we're building towers, we're building buildings, and it could be that we'll fall. And it could be that after Yom Kippur, maybe we will go slightly down from the madrigas and from the things that we do now. But the tower is still there. It's built, it's there, but just we fell, and it's so much more possible and easier to get up again. Rabbi Yisai, take upon yourself something small and something very small. The Gedolim, some of the Gedolim of Shach sometimes used to take upon himself only on a Wednesday to daven benching from a bencher. You think with Shach didn't know benching Baal Peh, but not every day, and not every single time he benches. Once a week in the morning, that's it. When you do one small thing, and you take upon something that you can manage, then comes on Yom Kippur, you have that with you in your pocket. And you show the Rabbi Shalom, I'm not perfect, but I'm working my way there. And eventually I'll get there. And Be'ez Hashem, the Rabbi Shalom should give us siyata d'shmaya, and we should do a tshuva gemura, gemachsim, to everybody. Koyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.